So this is the business meeting, monthly business meeting of New London Springfield Water Precinct Commissioners. And we're going to conduct that first. Twin Pines is on the agenda for 1:30, so we're not going to discuss that until we get to 1:30. I'm Ken Jakes. I happen to be chairman this year of the commissioners. This is Rip Cross, who's a commissioner. John McKenna's a commissioner. Rob Thorpe, who's the superintendent. And Rhonda Garthia, who is everything else to us. So we're going to go about our business. And when we get to the application request for Twin Pines, I will speak again on some of the guardrails that are being laid out today, okay? Thank you. Okay, so we'll go over the minutes, please, from July 1st.
Ready for a motion?
No, I'm still reading. Give me a minute. I actually think I've read this already, but it doesn't hurt to refresh my memory. Okay. John, you all set with that?
Yep.
I'd take a motion.
All right, I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes as written.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposition, no abstention. Okay. Do you have income expense report in? Yeah, it's right here, right in front of me. So income and expense report, please. You don't have anything outstanding right now?
All water bills are paid.
Nice. That's because they don't want
No
to deal,
shut-off
it's because they don't
notices.
want to deal with you. Robbie, how'd you make out with the insurance on that well on Covey Point with the pump?
They ended up paying that, yeah.
Good.
Paid the deductible and,
They paid it all.
Great, that's why we have insurance, right?
Yep.
Okay. Any issues, any questions or issues with that? John?
None.
Is this the payment request from this? You are?
Yes, that's
Have
the
you
check. I
looked
need
at that
you
at
to
all?
sign that.
You need me to sign it?
Right on top here.
Right here.
Yes.
That's the one we had last week?
Yes.
Yeah, I've looked
You're all
at
set
that.
on that?
they're not gonna get to it till 1:30 or something.
So you don't need to see it again?
No.
Okay, there you go.
Oh, no, I need Rip and John to sign that.
Oh, yeah. You guys need to sign the bottom right there, please. What do you need for that CD? You said you already took care of it?
I just need you guys to make a motion.
Okay.
So I can move it from.
Yep, that's fine.
Bar Harbor to Mascoma.
Yep. So, this here, and we need a motion for her to do that. So, thank you. The next thing is, John, we're closing the CD at Bar Harbor and reestablishing it at Mascoma in order to move money around so that we're insured. So I need a motion, it's pretty much been done already. Rhonda's taking care of all the paperwork. So I need a motion for us to authorize that, if we could.
I'll make a motion to authorize that.
Second? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There you go.
next two things, just need you to review an initial that it came through the office. That's all.
Yep. Well, I know all about that. So you're being noticed, did you figure out why you're being noticed on this wetlands abutment?
What is this?
Wetlands abutter?
No.
No,
Is it
this is
because
the
of the-
wetlands and bottom. This is some chemical stuff. that
That's
we-
not the next thing. Oh, yes, it's this PFAS, yes, you're right, I'm sorry.
This went out to all water
Yeah, 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 yeah,
precincts, and just, we don't have anything to do with it.
Right. So
We
you
don't
just
have
want
any of
this
that.
initial?
Yeah.
So this was a PFAS notification for review only?
You can read my little sticky note on there, Rip.
Little note. We just need to initial it, if you could, and then give it to John. This is what their proposal is?
That's what it's going up
Yeah.
this month. Oh, yeah, and I saw the increase. And then next year, it's going up that much
Didn't
again.
it just go down 10% or 12% or something? Yeah. That was short-lived, wasn't it? What's that?
This is better.
Oh. Yeah.
Could I have a copy of this too? Down there?
Yeah, well, it's gonna be at the precinct. Do you have a copy? I don't think you do.
I don't believe it.
That's just a notification for us.
Okay, just so I have it from Eric.
Make him a copy.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay. So this is an abutters notice for the villa? I think we talked about this or not? We did, okay. So it's just, you need that initial too?
Yes. Everything that comes to the office now.
I got you.
This is for the brook, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think I told you about that. It's part of that watershed protection.
Right.
You don't need to sign that?
And you need to initial it.
Need the initial. Okay.
You can look at that if you want. That's rate increases proposed by Eversource.
It's like a bouncing ball these days.
Yeah, it just went down 10% or some friggin' 12%.
It's going up a lot more for residents. That's business.
Really?
Yeah. I think it's like 7 point
What's
something.
justifying that? They don't give any reason why, just.
I'm sure.
We had nothing to do today?
It's there.
So where are you at with this? Have we done anything?
Just waiting for your approval, and then John will do it for
So we're
volunteer.
approving it for John Ellis?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Do you have any idea what the economic impact is of this?
Well, you mean numbers-wise?
Yeah.
No, but I can have that for you.
Well, it would be, oh, this isn't just Eversource though, right? This is everything?
Right. But I have it all.
Yeah.
I have a spreadsheet of it.
As John, he's looking at it now. Well, you have just electricity in there right there. So, is that the budgeted number? No. Do we have the budget number? We don't have a budget.
No, because you have one budget for utilities, and
Right,
then I
right,
put
right,
it
right,
in separately. So that is the right, what we spent from January to August for
Right.
electricity.
Right,
yes.
right.
Yeah.
So that's probably gonna be somewhere around $68,000, $70,000.
Yeah.
So it'd be 5%, 6% above 68 to 70,000. So $3,000, $4,000. Okay, so, this is the deputy treasurer
Right.
position that we're gonna create.
Yep.
And that's gonna be filled by John Ellis. So Rhonda would like approval to go ahead and do that. So I'll read what it is. Below the duties attached to the deputy treasurer will be responsible for assisting the treasurer. There are only duties performed without direction from the treasurer or commissioners. Excuse me, these are. The deputy treasurer,
Did I spell that?
that's a little spell,
Sorry.
is an appointed volunteer position. This position will not be an elected position. So that it's Thursdays, you make deposits at the local bank and enter the QC deposits into QuickBooks. First or second Thursday of each month, reconcile bank accounts. First Monday of the month, review the treasurer's report. Any issue with that?
I got a question. He be signing the payroll checks also?
No.
Yeah.
Commissioners do that.
That has to be done by the commissioners. Okay.
Well,
Or-
if you voted on it, you could have them do that, but
I think we want to be looking at the numbers. That's my feeling, yep.
Okay.
We can always expand.
We could expand it and-
I've been
and
doing it for quite a few years. I just wanted to pass it on to have
to somebody.
new eyes look at it.
Well, why don't we have him come in for the first couple, 3 months and see what's involved in doing it?
Okay,
And then if you like and are comfortable with it, we can move on from there.
Super.
That's fine.
good.
You have a motion to
I'll
create
make the
this
motion.
position?
Second.
do you want to have John, like, get up and accept it?
Yeah, we haven't even passed it
Yeah,
yet.
just,
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Where's John Ellis? Stand up and accept this, would you please? Attaboy, thank you. You guys gotta just sign that before I initial it.
That's the shortest time you ever talked. Do we sign it? Right here.
I don't know, do they need to sign that at the bottom too, or just initial the whole thing?
I'd sign it.
I signed it.
Do I have to sign it too? Thank you. Okay, Robbie, Commissioners report? So I think the thing that stands out the most here is the usage of water in the month of June
July.
compared to last year. So we have
Is this June or
7.7.
July?
July. Was it July's?
It's a typo.
I have to fix that. July's numbers.
That's what I thought. So, 7.7 million gallons as opposed to 11 million gallons. It's quite a difference. It's over 100,000 gallons a day on a daily average. So, and that turned the year-to-date way around. We were running under, now we're up 2 million above. So SUR, when do you think they're gonna be starting on the middle of the project?
As soon as they get
Chlorine back?
bacteria test on the temp water, they'll start hooking that stuff up.
Okay,
And so probably another 2 weeks, and they'll be digging.
they'll be digging? How long do they think it'll take them to do that stretch?
They're not really sure. They can't go flat out like they have on the other two sections because it's tight and
Too much stuff.
there's a lot more stuff there.
Okay,
I think if you saw 200, 250 feet a day, it'd be a good day through there. They're getting 300 to 400 on the other sections. So,
You still hoping to be done by the end of September?
yeah, I think they will be. I mean, they might have some punch list stuff that they're doing in October, but I think for the most part, everything's gonna be paved in,
Really?
yeah,
Oh, it's good.
yeah.
How much backflow testing do you have?
What, for the month?
Yeah,
It's hard to say because we're backed up, because,
we're behind.
yeah, because it's just John and I haven't really been too available, so.
Yeah,
We probably got, I'd say at least 9 to do this month.
okay. Sensing line is for up here?
The sensing line.
The booster?
Yeah, that's at the booster station, that's for the new chlorine analyzer. We ran the line into the building last year, I just need to get Miller to come put it in and,
Okay.
run the copper in the building.
Yep,
But as soon as he gets here, it's like a day job. And then I can have A&D come install the analyzer and get the chlorine system working.
okay. And your sampling is getting better?
Well, the third quarter sampling was for TTHMs and
Right.
JA5, so those are usually fine. The monthly bacteria, I think, is going to be fine. I have to do a survey, and it's, mainly caused by the construction. It's right in that area, so. The state's, been real good about it. I talked to Cindy Clevens this morning, and she explained everything I need to do in the survey. I just need to document on the survey, the area, and that we're, involved in major construction, and, do some system evaluation samples that don't go against us as far as, taking a bacteria hit. Just to see where we're at, do some flushing. I think we're gonna do some flushing towards the end of this week on Main Street. We'll just, try to move some fresh water through there and see if we can clean that up.
Okay, good. Been to the pond?
What's that?
Been to the pond?
The boys went to the pond, cut a bunch of trees. There's some washouts that were there last year, we knew about them. Everything looked good up there, other than that.
Can you still drive to the pond?
What's
Can you
that?
still drive to the pond?
Yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah, even with that switchback all
Yeah.
washed out? Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
Can I say something?
you're gonna anyway, go ahead.
Damn right.
Go ahead.
I talked to Rob, because I've heard a lot about this cloudy water in town. He reassured me it was air in the lines,
Yep.
filling the lines back up. And I found that I put a few ice cubes in, cleared right up.
Okay, so you're encouraging people to drink?
Oh, beautiful.
Okay, good. Did you have any questions for Robbie on any of this stuff, or questions for him? No. Okay, do we need to initial this too? No. All right, 406 Main Street, who's this?
School off.
Robbie?
Slosky?
Yeah.
Oh, this is, yeah, okay. And he's gonna have SUR do this work?
Yes.
All right. Is he to the road, or is he gotta go all the way to the building?
No, SUR already laid the main to, and a chlorine injection tap air relief to the far side of the road. They're off the road.
Okay.
That's all been accomplished.
And who's doing the rest?
They are.
Oh, they're still doing that
Yeah,
too?
they're gonna do that at some point.
Okay,
I don't know what their schedule looks like on it. But I thought they were gonna get going on it last week, but they moved the other crew out of town, so.
have you gotten any money from him?
Yes, we got a
Oh,
check.
yeah, we did.
We got a
Yeah,
check.
Okay.
And the check cleared,
Yeah.
didn't bounce.
Actually, it should say it on there.
For the 5 units behind the old Lemon Twist.
Is it our approval or
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's an application.
final approval?
Yeah. It's been reviewed by the
Does it
engineer.
say?
I don't think so.
Did you get paid, Peter? You haven't submitted it yet, okay.
I don't see that it says they paid.
They did pay.
Yeah. So this is what we already looked at. If you guys want to look at it, we need to sign off on it.
Kenny, because it's in that line right here. System development.
Yeah, right. Yep. Well, I remember Robbie said he had dropped the check off, so.
Yeah. It's my old page.
I'm gonna recuse myself on that.
From that? Okay.
Oh, let me see that. Did I sign off on that? The only thing I'm gonna add here, let's see. He wanted me to add on here that we'll own to the property line.
Yeah, he was, well,
Which is-
alone in the state right away.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay. Yep. That's it.
So you need to make sure you make notes that John recused himself
did.
from this application, okay? Okay. Other questions for Robbie, or did you have something you want to bring up?
Yeah, I get some notes to bring up when time comes.
Notes about what?
This is about my working with the Cassini family on the sale,
Yeah,
why I recused myself. It was during the drought years, when we had no water regulations. And we put hand watering, no washing of cars, one thing or another, and the droppage in the usage. Robbie can probably come up, or he can come up with the figures. These are the questions I had in my mind.
okay. So, okay. So do you want to enter those into the minutes now before you recuse yourself, or do you, because you've recused yourself once already on this? On-
Yes, okay.
on
I
Twitter.
just wanted the folks here to know that I recused myself of being an agent, so.
Okay, then why don't you tell them? Right now's a good time, because we're not going to open this for another 5 minutes.
No, okay. I've lived in town for around 60 years. Owner of a restaurant for 52 years, so I've had employees for 52 years. I know what the local businesses are going through at this time. I'm one of the realtors representing.
John, can you talk?
Can't hear it. Okay. I'm one of the two realtors representing the Cassini family in the sale to Twin Pines along Meadow Commons. I also recuse myself from voting on any future water hookups that may become before this board until the board identifies the number of houses, units that can apply and receive water, or the gallonage used by the New London Water Precinct can supply. This should be on a first-come, first-served basis. During the drought years in the past, the precinct has put in a water usage regulation where you could wash your cars, hand water from 7 in the morning, I believe.
7 in the evening till 7 in the...
Yeah, I got it backwards.
Yeah.
7 in the evening to 7 in the morning, and the usage went down I don't know what the usage was at that time. Probably unfair not to ask you before.
Well,
but-
typically, I'll answer your question. It's when we have 4 consecutive days of 500,000 gallons, we implement a water ban.
Okay. And before COVID, Underwood Engineering, as I understand it, approved New London Place for water usage in domestic and fire protection. I think there's somewhere around 180 units, somewhere around that way.
It's been a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. You know, what changed in 6 years? I think it's around 6 years. It's before COVID. In our last week's meeting, New Hampshire DES, 2 representatives came, and they thought we should have independent engineers besides Underwood look at the water supply as a second opinion. I think an independent engineering review of the water supply is needed currently. I also feel that Underwood and New Hampshire DES has been inconsistent in the past as far as our water supply on Kobe Point is concerned. One time's yes, then it's no. And that's why I support having an independent engineering study done. And along with New London Place and Long Meadows, we have New London Hospital needing more operating rooms in the future. So there's going to be more need for water. So that's all I get to say.
You don't mind if I disagree with you on some of that?
Oh, go right ahead.
Well, no, I just do.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Okay, well, then I'll take a couple minutes to speak here. So it's important for everybody here to understand this is a Board of Commissioners meeting. This is not a public forum. We do not take comments from the public. We are going to review this application for Twin Pines. Twin Pines and/or their agents will get to provide information to us. We have our information that's been given to us by the state of New Hampshire, DES, and also information from Underwood, who Twin Pines has paid, as part of our process, has paid to have that reviewed. And then we will, depending on how all that goes, we'll render a decision as to what we think. And I understand that there's a lot of things in play here, and I can assure you that we get it. I mean, I've read all the stuff that's been blasted out over the computer, and I don't like computers, so I still read it anyway. And there's a lot of information out there. Some of it is accurate, some of it is not. And so I would ask you to just think about that as you move along. Some stuff can be taken with a grain of salt. I understand the need for affordable housing in New London. I've lived here a long time too, and I'm also a major employer in this area. So I understand what is needed, but I think, to be fair, New London has never been a place for average workers to live. It's just not that type of community economically. And I really didn't ask for that. I'm telling you what I see. I have 5% of my workforce lives in New London. And I hire 70 people each year, and that's consistent. So anyway, everybody has their own opinion on it. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to ask Twin Pines to make a presentation along with their engineer. So whoever speaks needs to identify themselves, and they need to also make sure that they are an agent speaking for Twin Pines. Okay? And, we certainly will listen to what you have to say. And we've gotten our information from Underwood and also from the state. And so we're going to take that information, digest it, and hopefully come away with a decision today. So I think it's close enough to 1:30. All right,
You're right on the nose.
perfect.
Okay. Thank you so much for the opportunity to make this presentation this afternoon, Mr. Chairman. My name is Andrew Winter, and I'm the Executive Director at Twin Pines Housing Trust. I'm going to essentially give you the shorthand version of a statement that I gave to you last week, but I do think it's helpful for people here to probably hear a little bit about the history, what's going on, and why we find ourselves here, if only so we can tamp down any speculation that may not be accurate as to what's happened and why we're here. So with me today are our engineers, Aaron Lambert and Abby Fopiano. So they will get into the technical aspects of what we've been up to and provide a little bit more information around schedule, demand, sub-metering, the kind of technical issues that are typical for them to address. As you are aware, Longmeadow Commons is a proposed 60-unit workforce housing project. We originally started in front of you in early 2023 to connect to the precinct. That request was denied for domestic water connection and approved for fire protection due to concerns about a suggestion that New Hampshire DES made in a 2023 sanitary survey to the effect that the precinct should start considering ways to increase the overall capacity of the water system. I understand that you all met with DES last week and look forward to hearing more from the commissioners about the results of that meeting. When the project was denied a connection for domestic water last year, the importance and urgency of this project compelled us to permit and drill wells to provide water for the project. Over the last 6 months, we installed 5 different wells after the initial set of wells failed to produce more than a few gallons. We also installed a road to allow heavy drilling equipment to access the site. This was not an insignificant cost to the project in working through the permitting, engineering, and installation of the wells, all at a cost of nearly $200,000. The last well that we installed produced over 100 gallons a minute, and we thought we had solved our water issues. Unfortunately, we learned 10 days ago, or now add a little bit more to that, given that I was drafting this last week. We sought to do additional testing on this water when we thought we were going to get ready to start the testing. We learned about the contamination at the New London Cleaner site that has impacted the ability of the Continuum project across County Road to connect their wells. And so DES denied their application or their request to connect those wells and put a hold on the testing of the wells that we had drilled. It is unclear when we will get approval to test that water, let alone use the wells that we've installed, given the possibility of contamination migrating from the nearby site. There are also challenges in financing a project that includes those wells, given the possibility of pollution migrating from that site. That's why we're back in front of you today, to request approval of our original request to connect to the precinct for both fire protection and domestic water. The plans submitted are substantially the same as those that were fully reviewed last year by Underwood, the precinct's engineers. To put it bluntly, we're running out of other options. So our request to you is based on engineering standards. It says 150 gallons a day per bedroom or 12,000 gallons per day. The buildings we're going to construct are much more efficient than the typical building, and we expect to use more like 3,500 to 6,000 gallons per day based on other similar recently completed projects in our portfolio. It is worth noting that while we will use only 25 to 50% of the water that the rules require us to plan for, we will still pay a construction connection fee based on 100% of the theoretical demand. That connection fee, $130,000, will help the project finance improvements to the overall water supply system. We want to be your partner in helping to ensure adequate capacity for all users at a low cost, while also serving as an example of water conservation techniques by employing high efficiency, high performance water fixtures and systems. Aaron's going to talk a little bit about the schedule in more detail, but we are looking for the ability to move forward with financing the project this year, getting into construction next year, and then bringing the units to market 2 years from now. So that's just a sense of the timetable during which you will have completed the Main Street repairs, And hopefully, with the $130,000, been able to do some of the repairs or rehabs work that could be done to improve the performance of the existing wells. I'm going to just share a little bit about the financing of the project. Mr. Chairman, you made clear that you're not a board of adjustment, and hardship doesn't mean anything. But I will say, we have financing in place from the state of New Hampshire Housing. We have a foundation that has been generously supporting this project and supporting the work that we've done in looking at a well system. And that is very much at risk. I'll submit a letter to you as well on that piece. So we're looking for a timely, to the extent that you can, a timely decision on this particular application. So with that said, I appreciate the opportunity to address you. I'm going to let Aaron, I think, speak a little bit next about schedule, unless you have questions for me.
I have a question.
Sure.
So from 12 months ago, what do you think has changed on the precinct's part that we had denied it originally and we could be able to approve it now?
I'm going to theorize that there may be some sense that DES was not saying, don't hook up anybody. I know you've had some connections during that time. I know you're talking about a connection today. So, clearly.
Nothing of this magnitude.
I'm sorry?
Nothing of this magnitude.
Nothing of this magnitude, but you are having other connections. And again, I think, the fact that this is a room full of people, there are people here who care about workforce housing. There are people who care about what's going on with New London Cleaners and are interested to know, okay, what's going on with the contamination there. But there are also people that are concerned about the system and making sure that it's, operating as efficiently as possible, making sure that there's enough water for everybody, all the users, but also recognizing that, there are a number of commercial properties and projects, whether it's ours, whether it's Continuum, whether it's the New London Hospital. John made reference to the issue of operating rooms there. So I think, we very much want to make sure that those folks are hearing the concerns. And if we need to get into it with DES and talk a little bit further about DES and the correspondence, I'll let Aaron address that as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Erin Lambert with Wilcox & Barton. I've been working for Twin Pines as the site civil engineer, specializing in site design and water distribution. Abby Vopiano is here. If we have questions about the well development and redevelopment and cleaning of the wells, I'm going to defer to her. It's not my area of expertise. But I wanted to add a little bit to what Andrew said. He covered a great deal of what I was going to talk about. But as we said, our original application was for the same number of units, so it's 60 units with a water demand of 12,000 gallons per day based on 150 gallons per day per bedroom. So that's the state standard for what we all have to plan for. However, we have a number of 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. And so obviously there's a range of use based on the number of people that occupy those. And so there's also, Metcalf and Eddy has published data, as well as we have anecdotal data from other projects. So the great thing about this project being designed to passive house standards is not only is it energy efficient, but it's water efficient. So I recognize that we all have to plan for the 12,000 gallons per day, but the good news is a project like this will really use more on the magnitude of 3,000 to 5,000 gallons per day. We also would propose, and this is just additional detail I wanted to share with you, the project would have a master meter, so that for the precinct, you'd have 1 meter for the entire project, make it easy for you for collection and billing. But the client would like to do sub-metering. It would be at their cost and they would maintain them. But the nice thing about that would be to have a meter at each building just gives us more data, allows you to have more information about flows or leaks and those type of things. So we wouldn't ask the precinct to bear the cost of having that sub-metering and having to do multiple bills for the project, but we would sub-meter those, and Twin Pines would monitor that as a way to additionally be mindful of water consumption and get on top of any leaks or excessive flows that they may see happening. Lastly, I wanted to just expand upon the construction schedule that Andrew was talking about. So while we have all of our permits in place and financing, once water is secured in one way or another, they would like to begin construction in the spring of 2025. which would bring these projects or these units online in the summer or fall of 2026. So we're talking about 2 years from now. I know there's been a lot of question about what phase 2 might look like. We don't know. There's land there that Twin Pines has an option to purchase. It's predicated upon the successful occupancy and rental of phase 1, so we really don't know much about it. It would at most be 30 to 60 units, and that water wouldn't be needed for a minimum of 4 years. It's nothing that is on the books just yet, and it wouldn't even begin to be designed until after phase 1 were completed. So I know that people had questions about that. I just wanted to give a little bit of information as to where that may be going. So when we submitted our application in early 2023 and received our denial, it referenced specifically the sanitary survey, and that New Hampshire DES did not feel that there was enough water for us to connect to. I was copied on a letter last week, August 8th, from New Hampshire DES that had a lot of great information on it, sort of expanding upon options to not only focus on drilling new wells, but refreshing or redeveloping or cleaning the existing wells. So we're excited to hear a little bit more about that possibility, and Abby can talk about this more, but I understand that's a very typical thing that water precincts do. I'm sure it's stuff that you are already doing, so we'd love to hear a little bit more about that, but we were happy to see that New Hampshire DES was also strongly encouraging that just as part of the proper execution of the maintaining and water system. Underwood's here, and I think if you have any questions, if I've said anything incorrectly, we certainly wanted to just have sort of all the professionals here so we could have that conversation. Also wanted to find out a little bit more about the Main Street project, and if you had any thoughts or ideas as to the potential savings or reduction of losses that project may bring to bear on the water capacity. I don't know if as part of that project there's been any estimate of potential savings of water due to reducing losses.
Well, first of all, the letter from DES is a letter that outlined some ideas with respect to Colby Point. So Colby Point is already on a maintenance schedule and has been since the year we started putting it online. And we have an individual who comes out there, a well operator, who cleans 3 wells every 3 years. So we do the spine 1 year, we do the lower wells the next time around. And the turbines are all on to be rehabbed, and the pumps. So in listening to what he has to say, right now, we believe we're operating as efficiently as we can on Colby Point. And that's based on the professionals. So we do general maintenance on a schedule, kind of like a town would have a capital improvement plan. And that's done religiously. In fact, we just finished 3 of the wells this spring. And so you get some rehab back of the well field, but nothing to the extent of what's in that DES letter. And from our understanding is you will not be able to get back to that level with that existing well field. So that's coming from the people that work on the well field and know that. So I know that that's like a bright spot in the letter, but it's really not realistic. And I'm just trying to be upfront on what we know about it. So the sanitary survey and the information from the state, I can tell you right now, since 1995, when we went online on Colby Point, it has been requested that we find a secondary source of water. So that's a balancing act, because New London sits in a unique position. It's on the top of a hill, on top of a bunch of rock. And so it doesn't have a lot of options for large volumes of water. And we just had some monies that were allocated by the precinct, $20,000, that was expended to look at what our options may be. And most of the direction they were pushing us was to go to some sort of municipal bedrock well. Part of the problem with that is none of them are right nearby. I mean, they all would require pump stations, and that's if there was water there and quality of water was there also. The other issue is the land. We don't own the land. And so there's a lot of things that need to be ironed out before you just start diving into looking for that water. And we did push pretty hard for trying to, and I was the one who did it, I really would like to see them, if there was any option, to be able to gain the capacity back on Colby Point. And the hydrogeology firm that we were using was steering us away from that, along with Mike Metcalf from Underwood, who was leading that project for us, said that he felt that that was money that was not going to be spent wisely, and what we would recover out there would not be anywhere near what we would need. So I just wanted to share that. I mean, that's in their information, and that makes it more difficult for us to look elsewhere for water, because now you not only have the quality and the capacity of water, but you also have the financial restrictions. And I think that everybody needs to understand, when we look at this, we're required to have the precinct and the public's health in mind in how we manage the precinct. You know, the precinct was put in to service the downtown area of New London originally, and that's why it's here. And if you look at where the precinct runs, looking at the town of New London and the town of Springfield, it are the major areas that have business sectors in them or subdivisions close to town. So those are the things we have to look at when we look at it. And, you know, the precinct is an operation that has around $650,000 budget each year. This Main Street project is $5 million. This is, I can almost assure you, the tax rate will double, if not more, for the people that live in the precinct, just doing the Main Street project. And that's a $5 million number. So when you start talking about the numbers that were given to us with respect to bedrock wells, you know, that number was $11.5 million possibly. And a treatment facility, even the state said the other day when Cindy was there that they didn't feel that that was the direction we wanted to go with using lake water. That's a $25 to $30 million project. So there's only so much that the precinct can absorb financially. And those are things we have to weigh and look at too. I mean, you can't bankrupt the precinct in order to provide more water that you can't get to. So I just think that that's important to, it's not like somebody's just painting a broad brush over everything saying, well, we can't do this. Can't do it for various reasons. And I think that the financial end of it also has to be looked at. And granted, you know, $135,000 is a lot of money, but in the scale of looking for more water or rehabbing Colby Point, it's almost no money, unfortunately. You know, it's money, but it's not a lot of money. And even the continuum tie-in, you know, I think the two of them together was about $500,000, you know.
What were the primary objectives of the Main Street project? Is it quality, control of loss of quantity, or both?
It's being sick of fixing water main breaks. And the pipe was put in the 50s. It replaced the original wooden water main that was put in 25, 26. So we were at a point in the precinct's position to, we thought, we talked about it, Robbie's been here for a while, I'd been around for quite a while. It's always been in the back of our minds to redo Main Street because we knew we'd had so many problems with it. Each of those water main breaks cost us between $15,000 and $30,000 each break. And we've had 2 this year. So it was something that needed to be done. We were in a position where we were not laden with debt, and we thought this was the time to go ahead and look at it. So we had the engineering plans done by Underwood, and then after talking with them about it, we decided that we were going to put it out to bid just to see what came back. And we got a very competitive bid from the company that's out there. Just looking at the other bids, we know it was competitive, and so we chose to move ahead with the project.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't, I mean, you do get some water loss, but we're able to respond relatively quickly to water loss. You know, if we get a pressure differential, we can shut down the booster station, and we can isolate the break. So you lose some water, yes, but not, you know, not oodles of water. But the breaks are, labor intensive. It usually involves the town helping us out. We usually have Sunapee come over to help out. This is a difficult area to work in. There's a lot of infrastructure in the ground. So it wasn't that we were losing water, it's that we, even though that's a part of it, the main thing was that the water main was shot. I mean, the pieces that we were taking out of the ground had no bottoms,
Which had to have been losing a decent amount of water.
had bolts that had rotted out of the flanges. So it just had outlived itself.
Yeah.
And so,
So coming into the meeting, I know that since we were denied domestic, that 2 homes were approved to be hooked up, and I don't know how many bedrooms they have. They could have anywhere 2, 3,
so
4
there's no
bedrooms.
moratorium on.
It's
There is
just
no
part of my
moratorium.
question, I guess. And then there was another, I wasn't familiar with the project until today, but you were talking about 406.
5 apartments,
So
right
5
across the
apartments.
street.
So we now have potentially, well, we have 9 units. I don't know the number of bedrooms. So my question is, at some point you've approached a quarter of the number of units that are in Twin Pines. Does the precinct have some guidelines they could share with the public and their constituents as to where they are with allowing? Because it sounds like you're continuing to allow connections, but these commercial projects have been denied. So we just wanted to get a little more
Because
background
the
on that.
commercial projects are one fell swoop. It's one
But you've approached
huge
a quarter
amount of
of it.
water at once. We've been operating on 1.5 residential units per year. That's what we've been adding on to the precinct. So you would think that that's something that is sustainable. It's not that we're out of water, but a large project really can impact the system, particularly on the years where we don't have the water. So it's reality, I'm sorry, but it is. And the Continuum project, I know some comments were made about that project. I think we've seen multiple sets of plans for that project.
Yeah, and I'm not familiar with it. I've never
You
worked
can't
on
nail down
Continuum.
one of them. It changes on a regular basis. That project has since changed a couple of times since it came before us, and they're basically in the same boat you are. And
Yes and no. We have an application before the precinct. We have final approved plans. We have buildings that were designed to passive home standards. So while I respect what you're saying, you do have a lot of detail and a commitment on the design in front of you, as well as an application.
okay, thank you. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Abby Fupiano. I'm a hydrologist with Edgewater Strategies, and I have been working with Twin Pines on permitting the wells at the property. That's really kind of where my role was, and clearly because of the reasons Andrew stated earlier, we're back in front of the precinct now. I just kind of want to make a couple statements. You had asked the question about what has changed in the past year, so I kind of want to address that a little bit. The history that I know, and of course we've all been doing a lot of reading and whatnot about the information that's out there. But as one of your commissioners did state, in 2019, Underwood approved, and you did approve, to feed water to the hospital project. I don't know exactly what that number of gallons per day was, but I believe it was somewhere around the 25,000. At that time, COVID hit, things died down, nothing happened for a few years. In 2022, you had a sanitary survey with DES, which is when the state comes out every 3 years just to look at the water system, make sure everything is operating as it needs to, how can they help, how can you help, that kind of a thing. You had stated at that time that you were running high on the water use, but you'd also stated at that time that you were hooking up the hospital, and that was all in play too. In 2023, when both Twin Pines and the hospital came back to ask for water, that's when the statements that you made in the letters really said, DES is telling us we don't have enough water, they're recommending we do other things, we're running to peak demand days a few days a year, we can't do it. We can't connect a system of this size right now. And here we are a year later saying the same thing. And from our conversations with DES, and I believe the meeting that you might have had last week, I think there was some clarity on that DES did not put you on any type of moratorium or really tell you not to connect people. That's something that, as you've just kind of explained, you took on yourself to choose to connect smaller homes or smaller projects but not a big chunk. So it does seem as you have, in essence, put some sort of moratorium on the commercial developments coming in here, trying to ask for that water. Now, I understand that you do, based on the water usage that you've submitted, you use about 200,000 gallons a day in the winter, and you run high 330 and clearly up to 500 gallons per day on some summer months. So it's really the summer days that you hit this high. As Twin Pines has told you, I mean, the application is for 12,000 gallons per day, 150 gallons per day per bedroom. But I think you know, and we all know, that it is going to be a lot less than that. And I think the question here today is really, will you allow them to use the water? Can you give them that water? So at 6,000 gallons per day, let's say the high estimate of the lows, I mean, that's really 2% of what you're using, right? So it seems that that's something that is doable for you at this time, especially since it's not coming in 2 years, especially since you're going to have these savings from Main Street and whatever else you do the Colby Wellfield in that time. I mean, I'm not here asking for water for anybody else. It was just for the Twin Pines and what they're really going for. So I know Underwood's probably looked at all of this. I work with a lot of water systems. I never want to put a water system in a place where they can't meet it. They can't feed it. They're going to be in real harm's way. But it does seem, based on Drew Koff's letter that you got last week, about conversations you probably had last week with DES, about your high summer usage, taking on this additional water use and implementing other programs and policies, you should be able to do that. I also do agree with the commissioner that you should have a secondary opinion, kind of look over everything, so that you do have all the information. I've worked with Underwood a lot, Emery and Garrett a lot. They're very, very respected, smart folks. They do say good things, but it's never never harmful to really get that second opinion, just so you can see it. And I do believe that your drilling contractor, who's also reputable, that's been working on your wells for a long time, knows what he's talking about. But it is good to get some other opinions or get some more data like that water level data to really understand what's going on.
So what were the other policies that you thought we should implement?
So based on, I think, some other water conservation measures could be useful here. And the out-facing public information on how those water conservation measures might be put into place. I do think that the water level monitoring at the well field, to really understanding what wells, I mean, you probably are operating efficiency, but you can really have a lot more knowledge as to how each well is reacting and how you want to pump those however you do. And I don't know what your operations are. All on, all off, some on, some off, that kind of a thing. But it does seem like your max days are your summer high days. And everybody, we're going to have those, right? Everybody loves the 4th of July weekend. Everybody loves filling their pools in the spring, right? But there are some other types of methods that you could use, and we can come up with some of those. Not me, but anybody can kind of work with you on those. But it is more along the water conservation line, and really educating your big users about what they're doing. I mean, a lot of your other big users might have leaks within their own system that they've just been paying for forever. But you could organize some sort of good leak detection within those systems or something to help them reduce their usage as well.
So I think it's important to note that most of your users that are in the water precinct are on town sewer also.
Mm-hmm.
So I can assure you that they know if they have a water leak, because they use our numbers to generate, or they did, I'm not sure where they're up to now, but they use the numbers to generate their usage bills for the sewer. And there is, we've encouraged water conservation, we provide information for what you can do, low flow, everything. But I think that the sewer kind of dictates what people choose to do with their properties and so forth. So, I appreciate the policies that you're suggesting, but it's not like we've been living in a box. I mean, we do this stuff anyway because it's good for our system. We're trying to get as much life out of it, as we can, and those are things that help it to go along.
No, understandable. And I guess I was also mentioning some other commercial developments. I don't know if there's a farm, golf course, campground type things that maybe they have deduct meters from the sewer meter because of known outdoor water use. So that could be an avenue, is kind of what I was talking about there. And Just had another thought that's now left my mind, but, yeah, it's really more just the concept of what exactly they're asking for in the real picture of how much water you use. As Aaron said, I mean, you have been connecting a number of people. They're asking for 80 bedrooms. It does seem like you've probably connected at least 20 bedrooms over this past year, you know?
That's not true.
Or 5, 6, 8 times 2, 2.5, 3 bedrooms, who knows? We don't have this information. But just in kind of the big concept of how much water they're actually using and what that really means for the district and on those big days.
Let me ask you another question. So you go ahead and approve this project, and we don't have the water that we need on any given year in the critical months. What do we do then?
Well, you got to put people, you have to stop some of that non-essential outdoor use is one option for that, but it doesn't seem as though that's something that's really where you're at. I mean, with the Main Street, if you've had these leaks on Main Street that you're repairing, I mean, what they're asking for is maybe 4 gallons a minute throughout the course of a day. So if you've got those leaks on Main Street that now you've fixed, you know, you're probably saving that right at the end of that project.
So these aren't leaks that have been running nonstop. These are a leak that bubbled through the top of and we shut it off and we fix it. So I understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah, often I see a small leak get bigger, but yeah.
Yeah.
And you know the system more than I, you know, so I'm just here as kind of on Twin Pines, knowing what I see with water systems. Again, it's not the intent to try to stress you, really, right? But it is the kind of the question of, is this amount of water doable for where we are right now? You know, if a user is asking for 50,000 gallons per day coming in, that is a different story. But at the 3,000 to 6,000 that they're really going to use, the question is to
Well,
think that through.
Again, the 3,000 to 6,000 though is the number that you're generating and you're saying, I mean, you don't have any control over the usage of these units. Is that true?
Well, that's true, but I mean, given the efficiency of the units, I mean, if you ran your own numbers on what people are really using in the system, I think you'll find that the average use is closer to 100 to 125 gallons per day per connection, per 3-bedroom house. So those are really, known water use numbers are much less than the book value of 150 gallons per day per bedroom.
Okay, but when we do our evaluations, we use the book values because that's what we've always used. That's what the state's told us to use. That's what Peter uses. We use the book values. So, yeah, I mean, I
Right.
understand what you're saying. On one hand, this is what theoretically it could be. It's not necessarily that. So,
Well, thank you.
The only thing I wanted to add about that is there's 2 different water rates that are used. So the 150 gallons per day is the septic rules, and the sewer rules use the Metcalfe books, which does support the 3,000 to 6,000. So when we're developing water sources, as I spoke with Cindy Clements last week, we're required to use that 150 gallons per day per bedroom. But there are other published water sources, including Metcalfe. And so if you're doing sewer design, it's 38 gallons per day per person, and then we use the peaking factor. So it's not that it's just a number that we've made up. It is supported by water use data we have in other facilities, but it is a published data by Metcalfe.
okay. Is that where you are?
I think that's where we're at, but one last observation, and that is, so we've talked a little about this passive house concept, and one of the trying to build super energy efficient buildings, and the benefits of that is reduced water use, circulators, things like that, so that people aren't running the water for 5 minutes to get hot water. One of the other things that we've done and we do here is we do not put plantings or anything that requires irrigation. So there's no irrigation during the summer months
We had
as well.
discussed that.
Yeah, so I just wanted to reiterate that point. So trying to make it as low water volume as possible. So that's it. So I think that's the end of our presentation. Happy to take any other final questions from the commissioners at this point.
I don't have a question, dude. So that you know, You had indicated last Monday that there was the urgency, and I understand that. So we had sent everything back to Underwood and received some information back from them over the weekend. And we also had met with the state last Monday prior to speaking with you. Cindy and Randy were up. Both of those two entities have steered us in the direction of not approving this project to be tied into the system. That came from Underwood, and also DES said that they did back their letter from a year ago. Now, they offered some opportunities for us to look at if we wanted to go ahead and try to improve Colby Point or try to make some changes out there. But a few things that, were pointed out that I'm pretty sure they weren't quite aware of with Colby Point was that we don't own the land on Colby Point. We lease it. And the lease has some restrictions on it. It is a maintenance restriction for the wells. And when we put the wells in out there, I can remember Jim Cleveland saying, go get all you can get now because you're not coming back. Now, I don't know if that still follows with the new generation that's running Cleveland Corporation. I have my thoughts on where that is. I'm not sure we can go put another well out there. I think we could increase the capacity of the casings that are out there and call that maintenance, and the state has indicated that they would look at that as not requiring a new, large water volume permitting. But there's also a lot of question from the hydrogeologist that did the study that we did through Underwood, as well as talking with Barry, who is the maintenance individual that takes care of our wells, whether that would do anything for us. The other issue we have is if we are to change anything out there, all of our infrastructure conduit that runs from the well field back to the pump station on a 10-foot slice of easement is completely full. So there's no pulling new wires for new wells or any of that. We would have to start over and reset all new conduit for that. So it's, in as much as what the state had, some positive light on it, it really has a lot of obstacles, and I think you'll see in Peter's comments too, that those are hurdles that we're not sure we can overcome. We think we can, but it doesn't happen tomorrow. And I know that the funding issue is critical for what you're trying to do, but by the same token, it shouldn't override what we're looking at from the precinct's perspective. So, unless you have something else to say, John's recused, as Rip and I have to make this decision. Okay, make your decision.
Do we want to have Pete say anything?
Well, Peter is here at their request. Did you want Peter to say anything? He's not here for on our request.
I'd love to hear what, Peter's read on
Yeah, I'm going to let that be your questions to Peter. Again, we didn't ask Peter to be here, so, am I corrected?
Specific question.
So, again, I think you've looked at the DES letter, your take on the DES letter of last week.
Yeah, so Ken
I
mentioned,
don't know if you might want to be in there, because I know there are folks watching at home.
So this is, just to a clip, this is Peter Pitsis. He is the engineer for Underwood that has been with us since prior to the 1994-95 project. They were with Dufresne Henry, they've moved on, and he and Metcalf have been instrumental in helping us move forward on various things, not only the tank in the woods, Colby Point Pump Station, the sub pump station that's up here at Colby Sawyer, the tank at Colby Sawyer. So they're very familiar with the system and what it can and can't do, and where it started from. So,
Yeah, so I just mentioned on the letter from DES that came out on August 8th, they do mention some good, suggestions, and as I think Ken, really pointed out, there are some obstacles to get over to do that. And they're not things that can be done very quickly. Like, they don't have any money to do that, So if like, one of the suggestions was put a replacement well in. Well, we're just doing that right now down in Jaffrey. It costs $190,000, for the well, okay? That's a little bit of larger well, but it's gonna probably be in the same ballpark. If you have 6 wells out there and, you're close to you're over $1 million for that. They don't have that money sitting there. So, and you don't know, is that gonna work or not? So some of these things that you're suggesting, or that DES suggested, they are longer term, and we don't know the exact outcome of them. So, in that sense, we are saying that really nothing has changed since, 2023, when DES said that they don't have enough water out there. And we did, recommend to the precinct, if doing a formal like analysis of flows and stuff, because right now we're kind of going with, some, average flows. We look at like the last 5 years, maybe you can get some kind of a better feel for it. But also in terms of the precinct, they have started looking for another supply through Emery and Garrett is doing some of that work, and they have done phase 1 of that and identified areas. And again, as Ken mentioned, New London's on top of a hill, so most of these areas are away. So if you're talking about, running a water line out there, right now it's probably about $3 million to $3.5 million a mile to run a pipe, okay? So depending on where it is, that's a lot of money. That's not even getting the well installed and the pump station. And if treatment's required, some of the areas that, were identified were down near the interstate, and just north of that, where they did a big ledge cut, there's a lot of uranium there, so then there's a possibility. I know there's some private wells that have uranium treatment there. If that is a viable source in terms of quantity, how much treatment is available for that, that adds a lot to it. If it is uranium treatment, then what is the O&M for that, operation and maintenance, of getting rid of the radioactive material. So there's a lot of things like that. So they are in the process of looking for another supply, but that again, it's going to take a while to get there. And so in the shorter term, that's where we kind of made our recommendation.
When the Main Streets project is completed, do you have any sense for what kind of losses that may eliminate?
See, so like as Ken mentioned, I don't think they were seeing, and it's not like sand where it just like if you have a leak in sand, it just goes down and you lose it. The soil along here is not like that. So if you have a leak, it's going to probably surface, especially with the pressure that they have, in the downtown area. So the Main Street project was also really needed because if they do have a break, a lot of their valves were in poor condition. So then they have to move out further. So when every break they have, instead of disturbing this small portion, they got to disturb this big portion because they can't shut it down. So we're putting a lot of valves in there to be able to isolate all the different areas and stuff. So that's going to really help out in terms, well, if hopefully we're not going to be rain breaks out there with a new pipe, right? So, but if they do on side streets, they're able to shut down, because even on side streets, if they have a break on a side street and the Main Street valve doesn't work, then they have to go, the next valve down on Main Street and you're cutting down people. So that's going to really help in terms of, I think, of disturbance and interruption to users and stuff like that. I don't think it's really necessarily a volume thing because, if you lose 50,000 gallons in April, well, about time May comes, you already made that up, type of thing. So it's really, it doesn't really help in terms of how much, flow you use and stuff, so.
Are you familiar with the 7 connections that have been approved in the last year and how many bedrooms those are?
Excuse me, when someone asks a question, can they come up here so we can all hear, please?
She asked if I know anything about the 7 connections that were made, and I know a little bit about them, but I don't know all of them, so I don't know exactly.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
The question was just how many bedrooms. We had speculated it was between 4 and 20, and you said that couldn't be possible, but there were 7 units, and if they each had 2 bedrooms, that would be 14, and if the houses had 4 bedrooms, it would be 20. So we were just curious, and my question for you as the engineer would be, have you given them any guidance as to how many homes they could support?
Yeah, no, I have not. And individual homes, they don't typically ask us to have any kind of input on that. Yeah.
How many did you sign up? We did Solosky and who else?
It was maybe 2 others.
And they're older people, like single.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, I did call the state on each of those, and they said that they didn't feel that taking on, normal growth is a problem. It was taking on a bunch at once was the problem. That's what Randy Suozo told me. So it was at the commissioner's discretion to hook up those, because it is normal growth. It's a little over, but it's not, it's not 60 units.
The other thing I think that's worth mentioning, Peter, is that, and we talked with the state about this last week, is that, from the beginning, the state has always told us that managing water usage with restrictions is not something that they approve of. So if you have a capacity issue, they're not fond of, you could say, well, we can take on these new projects, and if we have a problem, we're just going to put water restrictions on. And that was not something that they have been advocating in the past.
Yeah, I don't want to put words into their mouth and stuff, but yeah.
But I mean, they've told us that, right,
Yeah.
Robbie?
But you started to make a point, then you stopped before. It's like, so if they use more water, during a high flow period, what happens? And it's like, then the population, the rest of the town would have to go on to restrictions. And so I think you started saying that, but didn't finish.
That's been the concern, and that's been the
Yeah.
reasons we've looked at it.
But it is,
as
yeah.
we have, and, so.
But the college and the hospital have all done conservation to go to low flow.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that's worth mentioning, is that some things have helped us with the amount of water that the precinct has required to have over the years. Some were unanticipated, and I mean, I'm sure some of the selectmen and so forth have heard this before, but when the town took over the sewer district and brought that under the auspice of the Public Works Department, the rates did increase quite a bit for the sewer system. And we saw the 2 largest users, the college and the hospital, do a transformation in their entire facilities to low-flow conservation, everything, because they were getting killed on the sewer end of it. So that was the driving force behind it. And you made the point that sometimes people just pay for stuff. Well, they weren't willing to pay for it. And I think a lot of other businesses and homes have made those same changes. The other one that affected the precinct a lot, on a positive note, was that the middle school packed up and left. And that was, 5 flushes per kid per day. It was a lot of water that was going into the central school. And that's gone too. That's all gone to Sutton now. So that was kind of a little add-on to give us more water capacity than we had anticipated. That wasn't something that we had planned on. And so those are things that are worth mentioning, is that those have allowed us to continue to use the Colby Point well field with some insurance that we have a reasonable amount of water. So, and we've talked with Peter about that and with the state, and those have been positive things, so.
And Peter, I just have some questions. What is your unaccounted for water?
We haven't really done I haven't done a study on that part of it to know.
We keep track of it in-house to some degree, and it's running right around 9 to 11%.
Okay, so that might be around 40,000 gallons on a high day?
Yeah, but tell me where it is.
Yeah,
That's,
understand.
that's been the problem, is to look at having somebody come in to find all where that water is. We're within the state guardrails on where we need to be on that. And when we find leaks, we fix them immediately. But the cost of looking for all that is a lot of money, and you know that.
Yeah, no, understandable, and 10% is good, better than most. It does seem like the new source, the $11 million 6-year project is clearly out of reach, especially with the Main Street at the $5 million. It's, thinking that you're going to take that on as well is really kind of a dream. So you are kind of left with focusing on the well field that you have and looking at the leaks that you might have and being the most efficient that you can be. And it does seem like you are taking steps for that. But in the talk of, all the costs associated for that, I think it's really, you got to step back and look at what you have and how to use that.
And that's why we advocated, and Peter knows, we pushed pretty hard on Metcalf because we really wanted to go out to Colby Point and work there. But when they sit there and tell you that that's not money well spent, you have to rethink that also. Mike sat right there and said, I would not go that direction.
And I guess I just want to kind of reiterate that in 19, you did approve to connect the hospital. And looking at the water use, not much has changed since then. It was just sort of the information back and
That was
forth and
before
clarity.
we were aware that the state wouldn't allow us to take it on.
Right.
They were never submitted to the state for review because they would have a plan and then they'd say, well, no, we're going to change this. Instead of 13 cottages, we're going to do 10. And Peter hadn't, how many reviews did you do on that? 7 reviews he did on that property.
So we never got it to the state.
I wasn't going to send it to the state when he hasn't reviewed it, and it keeps having problems. So it never went to the state.
Have you ever had something that you sent to the state that they denied?
Never. This is the first time, and we were all shocked.
Well, the state, you're saying the state did review it and deny it?
No, they did not review it.
Right,
They
so
never
this-
reviewed it. They've never seen it.
Right,
Continuums.
right, or Twin Pines, but the state hasn't
No,
told you
Twin
you
Pines,
can't.
they
Twin
reviewed.
Pines they've seen. The state has reviewed.
Twin Pines actually had their stuff together and had everything to me. He reviewed it, and I sent it to the state because it was over 1,000 feet of pipe. That's the criteria. So, and they reviewed it, and that's when we got the letter.
Which letter?
The first letter from Randy Suozo in March of '23.
That was from the sanitary survey.
No, that is not from the sanitary survey. That's from his review.
That's from their plans.
Copy of it right here.
Right, with the state, but the state didn't put you on a the state didn't tell you not to connect them.
They didn't recommend we connected them.
Are you good with Peter? I'm sorry.
It says right there that
Thank you, Peter.
he does not currently have sufficient water supply to meet the demand.
Right. Okay, well, are you ready to make a decision on this, or?
Yeah, I'm,
So, there's 2 of us commissioners that are voting as to whether or not to approve this application. As I said earlier, the criteria that we utilize and put weight on is the engineering review and discussions with the state of New Hampshire. And so, based on that, I think our responsibility is to look at what's in the best interest of the precinct as it exists now, and to try to move it forward so that maybe someday we can accommodate these types of projects. So I personally am not going to approve this project.
I'm not going to approve it either, just because we hire these professionals to guide us, and we have a fiduciary responsibility to the people, the 1,200 services that are already in the precinct, so.
And, I'm sure some people look at it and say, well, why haven't you been finding more water over the last 25 years? When we went out on Colby Point, it was the best of all the worst possibilities. I mean, that was the one that had the most promising ability to provide water to the precinct. And as it was extremely controversial. Steve Ensign is here somewhere. I know he knows it passed by one vote. We knew we had a finite amount of water, and we were going to do the best that we could. The state would not approve our existing source. They did not want us to treat that either through slow sand or through chemical augmentation. So we had very limited options, and Colby Point was the one option that we moved forward with. So I'm sorry that's not what a lot of people want to hear, but I hope people are not surprised by it either, so. When we do have the water, if we do have the water, we're more than willing to accommodate this type of project. I think also, I've heard a lot of commentary, and I'll just throw that out there, that this is the type of project that the town of New London wants. I get that. By the same token, just because you live in the precinct doesn't mean that you have to bear the cost of what the town of New London wants. Town of New London votes and changes zoning ordinances, but some of them have it has no impact on them whatsoever. And the precinct has to be cognizant, and the commissioners, of what that means to the precinct. So, maybe there should be some movement to have, and we've suggested it to the selectmen, that maybe the housing authority, housing board would want to be encouraging the selectmen to see whether the town wants to be involved in helping to pay to generate a new source of water for the precinct. That would seem to me to be a way to kind of get to where you're trying to go, because as you indicated, an $11 million project would absolutely hamstring the precinct fee. This project on Main Street is 20 years that we're going to be paying off $350,000, $360,000 a year for 20 years with no ability to prepay. So the tax rate in the precinct is going to go up quite a bit. And all the businesses and people in the precinct will see that. So I just think that's worth noting, that, it's not like we have a lot of options on just adding more water to the system. So with that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you for coming. Are you going to take all this back?